Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here once again, as always, forever and ever, with Tom Orr. Tom, how are you doing? It's Thursday.
It is Thursday. I got to tell you, my family's not thrilled that I'm sitting at the dinner table recording this podcast right now. You may hear plates clinking in the background and silverware and all that, and I'm actually kind of full of pie right now. But other than that, it's pretty good.
Yeah, I am currently napping while watching the Lions play. So,
I'm not watching them, but they're losing. I can say that for sure. That's how you know we're telling you the truth. The Lions are losing on Thanksgiving.
very good point. So today's show, the latest in the line of our daily Buckeye Weekly podcast for Michigan Week, which deserves as many podcasts and pieces as one or two humans can possibly deliver, is from. I went to Twitter and I asked for the Michigan fans that follow me to give us their concerns about this game. And the reason I was interested in their concerns is like yesterday, I went to Twitter and put out a poll. And it was asking Michigan fans for their concern levels heading into the game. And about, I'll bring the poll up, but the concern levels were like, certain you're going to win, fairly certain, not sure, and not great feelings about it. I think there's 58% of the Michigan fans felt at least fairly confident that they were going to win on Saturday. Which, Tom, I don't think that's unreasonable, do you?
I don't think it's unreasonable. I mean, it's a little strange. It's like asking me, how confident are you that you can, I don't know, walk on the moon this week? It's like, I don't know. I haven't walked on the moon at all in the last 7 years. How would I even know? I don't know. But
But
um,
like the moon exists, and two, that you
the moon,
can walk.
the moon does exist. Maybe they're going to play this game this Saturday on a Hollywood soundstage. I don't know. I mean, this metaphor got very complicated all of a sudden and took a weird turn there. But that's what this podcast does, and that's
Yeah,
okay.
that's a good name for it. Weird turns. So yeah, it was 24% said they're absolutely confident in a win. 34% said fairly confident. 21% said they were concerned, and 21% said not great, Bob. So I guess it's strange to see like 42% of Michigan fans, and this is a scientific Twitter poll. 42% of the world's Michigan fans are concerned about the game. And it was those concerns that I really wanted us to dive into. So I asked on Twitter, Michigan fans, get your parents' permission first, and then respond to me about what your concerns are for this game. And there's quite a few. There are some, I guess, some consistencies, Tom, in those concerns. Would you say?
Yeah, I think there's a pretty consistent thread of concerns, and they're all reasonable. This is not a game that Michigan is a lock to win by any means. I obviously they're the favorite coming in, and that's entirely reasonable, entirely fair. But there are certainly ways that they could lose this game, and I think that I think generally a fan base has a pretty good sense for what its own team's weaknesses are, and I think that the responses you got are probably in line with some of the things that I would have said if Ohio State is going to win. These are some of the things that are going to happen, and so yeah, I think they're pretty consistent.
Yeah, you just described Friday's show. If Ohio State is going to win, these things are going to happen. We'll get there. I know you're kind of all jazzed up on cranberry sauce and yams and marshmallows, but I'm going to have to ask you to bring it down a little. You know.
Our Friday episode is going to be titled "And Then a Miracle Happened," so look for that on Friday. But today we're talking Michigan.
Yeah, so let's go over some of those concerns and talk them out and see how valid they are and see what we think Ohio State's chances of taking advantage of those concerns are, and we'll just talk it out and see what happens.
All right, I'm going to set this up with what you actually tweeted out because it's relevant to the first response. He said, Michigan fans, what are your biggest concerns heading into Saturday's game? Let me know so that at Tom4 and I can talk about it in one of our episodes of at Buckeye Weekly this week. We'll tell you if your concerns are valid or you're just a dumb baby. Thanks. And the first one is from at MGoHumor. He says, number one, I am a dumb baby, so just clearing that up. So good, we're already halfway done. Number two, biggest concern is the mental hurdle of beating OSU after so much futility, because on paper, Michigan should beat this Buckeye squad, but they must believe first.
If you look at the last few games, and not the 2015 game, but like every other game that Ohio State has won since 2012, Michigan could have won those games. There were plenty of opportunities, and whether it be poor quarterback play, injured quarterback play for Michigan, which has been basically a constant in this series for a while. There are ways and things that would always happen to cause Michigan to lose, whether it's Wilton Spate throwing a pass that he shouldn't have thrown to Malik Hooker, or Michigan foolishly injuring JT Barrett and firing up an offensive line that paved the way for Ezekiel Elliott. There's always just something that happens, Tom. And so when that always happens, you become a beaten dog. You just expect, like, if somebody raises their hand, you're cowering. And that's what that's what the Ohio State game has been for Michigan for, I guess, since 2001. It's Ohio State, grabbing the newspaper, raising their hand, and Michigan just, waiting to get smacked on the head. And so I think this is a valid concern.
It is a valid concern. I like the fact that you went back to 2001 when newspapers were still a thing to really make that metaphor make sense. So that was good.
And thicker.
And if you were an Ohio State fan who is probably 30 years old or older, you remember what this feels like. This was the exact opposite in the 90s, when every year Ohio State went into the game, and it was at the first sign of trouble, every Ohio State fan went, oh, okay, here we go. They're going to lose. They're going to blow it again. And generally they were right. And I think that there's probably the team is not going to say that that's in their minds as well, but I think it has to be at some level. They have lived these previous games. They have seen themselves blow games that they probably should not have blown in the past. And there probably is a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy there. I mean, 2017, they had a chance to put the game away, and Josh Metellus dropped an absolute gimme of a pick six that would have made it 21, I think, nothing in the first half. He drops it. Ohio State, a play or two later, scores a touchdown. Instead of 21-0, it's 14-7. And the stadium at that point just went, oh no. Everyone knew it was happening.
I don't mean to laugh.
This is not a thing that is unique to Michigan. I have been to one game in my life at West Virginia University, and it was the 2007 West Virginia Pitt game. And I was in that stadium, and as West Virginia's kind of farting around in the first half and letting Pitt hang around, and then Pitt takes the lead, it was like, oh man, this is every 1990s game at Ohio Stadium against Michigan. Like, you could just feel it. The stadium just went, oh no, and then they blew it. And so that is, I think, that's a very valid concern for Michigan on Saturday. If they get up and they stay up, then obviously that doesn't come into play. But if it's close, late, or, and if Michigan has to drive down the field to make Michigan's down 2 points late in the game, and they have to drive down the field and convert some first downs and make a clutch late long field goal. I don't think Michigan fans and probably Michigan players are going to be feeling that great about that if that's what this game comes down to.
It's almost like playing them at Michigan might give Ohio State a home field advantage if things start to go poorly, because it was, the energy last year was ridiculous, and the Ohio State home crowd has not been very forgiving this year, in terms of the offense struggles and the defense, but you never want to give up the home crowd, the home field advantage in this game, and I'm sure Ohio State will be glad to play the game in Columbus on Saturday.
Yes. Now that the Big Ten has gotten rid of the ridiculous loud, the crowd is too loud rule that Jim Harbaugh took advantage of in
Oh
1986.
dear.
It will be an advantage to be playing at home. This is a very smooth transition to our next question from @RealCamTaylor. Hey Tony, really enjoyed your earlier discussion about bleach versus liquor this week. Real quick, how soon will Buckeye fans boo their own team on Saturday? Gerd, what do you think?
How dare you? How dare you pull my trick on me? You should not. I give you the impossible answers, the hard answers. And, um, if there's two straight 3-and-outs, the Buckeye fans are going to boo. That's just how it is. If on say Michigan's first possession, Karan Higdon goes 82 yards on the first play, Ohio State fans are going to boo. Once, well, they'll boo once the Michigan band, if they come out, if they're there, they'll boo them. There's just going to be a lot of booing on Saturday. If Ohio State wins, that means most of it was aimed at Michigan. If Ohio State loses, that means half of it was aimed at the Buckeyes.
I don't think it's going to be right away. I think that Ohio State fans are desperate enough to win this game that they're going to be doing everything they can to urge the team on to win and be as encouraging as they can. But yeah, if it starts going pear shaped a little bit, I don't think it'll necessarily be two drives in, but
I don't know. Isn't this the angriest you've ever seen Ohio State fans, though, for a 10-1 season?
well, for a 10-1 season, yeah. I mean, the I'm trying to think back to the 2015 Michigan State game because that's probably the closest analog to this, where they had a very good team. In that case, they were undefeated, but it had been such a frustrating season to watch just because it seemed like they were just completely blowing this tremendous potential that they had. And that was just not a fun season for Ohio State fans, I don't think. So I don't remember at what point in that game the crowd turned on the team, if at all. But I mean, if you remember that game, boy did they deserve to get booed. I don't remember if they did or not, but they deserved it.
But like I said on the last show, at the end, and this is serious, like Ohio State fans in general can impact a game one way or another, and it would a home team to impact the game negatively for their own team because they boo or they're upset. Players start to get whatever, takes them out of the game or whatever. That should be the last thing you would want to do. You're going to be unhappy because this game is never perfect and it's always difficult, and there may be some slow starts. That's not been unheard of in this series for Ohio State. How many times have they been, down 2 touchdowns or 10 points or 2 scores? So there's going to be there will be some outliers who are upset right away, and there's always those guys who think every incompletion somebody is should be taken outside and beaten up a little bit because how dare you make a mistake and not be perfect. But you would hope that fans would be more patient in games like this. And like Michigan fans last year, I don't know that they booed. They just they just deflated. And I don't know, I guess is deflating better than booing?
I mean, it's probably better than booing, but either way, the vibe in the stadium isn't great, and that's something that does probably impact the team on some level.
Yeah.
Next one from Real Wedge Gordon. This one is along the lines of something we got from a few different people. So if we don't read yours, that's along these lines. We will have answered it here. Avidly concerned that Ohio State has been lackadaisical, not been able to create urgency, have been an overall disappointment, but decides to wake up on Saturday and play beyond themselves. I mean, basically, the short version of this is Ohio State finally plays like the team that they were expected to play like all season and probably have the ability to play like if they can actually put it all together.
Yeah, Michigan fans, concerns and fears are Greg Schiano's hopes and dreams. Basically, like, I just hope everything, works out on Saturday. And what did Greg Schiano say after the game? We're as ready as we're going to be.
Yeah, yeah. The way he said it, he meant they're going to be as ready as they can get. But the way he said it was basically like, I don't know, yeah, well, it came across very, very badly. I don't think that's the way he meant it, but it didn't come across great when he said it.
To give you a call back to my 21st birthday, uh, you know, my stats class, my grade was as good as it was going to get, as good as it's going to be. So I didn't need my stats book anymore, and that's why I tore it up. I'm as smart as I'm going to get with those stats, and I don't need no more book learning. And I think Greg Schiano, God bless him, he don't need no more book learning either. And let those chips fall where they may, and sometimes they fall right down, and then somebody has to go chasing everybody else.
Next one from at Bunker F16. This is a nice, short and sweet. Slants and crossing patterns. We talked about this a little bit on the Wednesday show, but that's something that they, I think, can make use of and have some success with, but I don't think that's something that they can win the game just solely on slants and crossing patterns. That's because that gets predictable. I mean, we talked yesterday about you have linebackers drop back into zone, you run a zone blitz with some of your defensive ends, and there are ways to address that. And from an Ohio State perspective, I think Ohio State, if we're talking about the things that are keeping Michigan fans up at night this week, from an Ohio State perspective, Don Brown as a defensive coordinator is something that is probably keeping a lot of people in Columbus up at night this week. That is, if you are a Michigan fan who is not new to listening to this show, we have been. I don't know if Don Brown fan club is the right way to describe it, but we are both great appreciators of Don Brown's portfolio of work as a defensive coordinator. So I think there are ways that those can be dealt with. Ohio State is not going to be able to just live and die with slants and crossing patterns. They're going to have to be able to throw the ball deep. They're going to have to be able to run the ball. If you see Ohio State being able to run the ball, I think if J.K. Dobbins gets to 150, 200 yards rushing on Saturday, that means Ohio State wins. If Ohio State can execute some slants and crossing patterns, that means they're moving the ball some, but that is not necessarily something that is going to completely win the game for them.
Yeah, you don't consider yourself part of the Don Brown fan club? Why do I send you the newsletters? I write those. That's a lot of time.
If you are new to the show, we did create a fake television show as an homage to Don Brown and John O'Korn earlier this summer. I mean, it was a slow part of the summer, a slow part of the football calendar, but still, yes, we are. I mean, I don't think I'm officially a member, but it's deep within my heart, it's there.
Well, you still have to pass the trials, and until we see you kill a cow with your bare hands, you're not going to be a member.
The mustache is coming in really nicely, though, so I'm almost there on that one. Next one from John Helton at One Go Blue One. I mean, we've got some similar stuff here, but he goes into some more detail. Crossing routes and bubble screens against man coverage defense can lead to explosive plays, which, yes, true. Turnovers, special teams, especially field goal kicking, and QB runs against blitz packages, even though Haskins doesn't seem to run often.
And like we've said in one of our past shows, Dwayne Haskins is running more now, but he's not fast. So even while he may pick up some yards, don't expect him to go 25 or 30 yards. But if he can just move the chains, that's plenty, because that's something you weren't getting earlier in the season, and you need to get that in this game. Move the chains by any means necessary, in any way you can. We haven't seen like Paris Campbell break one in a while on those wide screens and those bubbles. But against Michigan's defense, there's some boom or bust there as well. I mean, it could be a 7-yard loss, or it could be 70 yards the other way. And the safeties won't be able to catch up. They're going to have some pretty decent angles to catch Ohio State's guys. Maybe not KJ Hill, because he's not the fastest guy, but you're not going to catch Paris Campbell from behind. You're going to need an angle. But we haven't really seen that much of late. Turnovers, Ohio State, they've had some. Last week wasn't great, fumbling inside the red zone. Shea Patterson he could turn the ball over at any time. And not that he's a bad quarterback, he's a very good quarterback, maybe a great quarterback, but he still does throw some wonky passes into places he shouldn't. He will fumble the ball. Ohio State just needs to pick up those fumbles, and if they can turn him over, a couple of times, then that's going to go a long way in not only securing the win, but turning the tide in terms of creating the doubt that we were talking about earlier, the Michigan doubt, and maybe just turning this into a self-fulfilling prophecy where the Wolverines start to doubt themselves and Ohio State starts to feel great about themselves, and then Ohio State goes on a 26 play 18-minute drive to keep their defense off the field, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, sure. If you're a Michigan fan worried about turnovers against Ohio State has intercepted a whopping total of 7 passes this year.
Yeah.
The longest interception return all year for Ohio State is 28 yards by a defensive tackle, Draymond Jones, that came against TCU on just a shovel pass. Basically, they're running just a little, like a shovel pass out of like almost a speed option kind of look. And Draymond Jones just picked it off and ran it back 28 yards for a touchdown. So they've had 7 interceptions all year. I'm counting fumble recoveries right now. 8 fumble recoveries. So that's 15 turnovers forced in 11 games. So that's 1 a game. If Ohio State's +2 or +3 in turnovers on Saturday, sure, that would be a huge difference and potentially potentially swing the game. But Ohio State's defense has not shown themselves to be particularly good at forcing turnovers this year.
And I fully expect Dwayne Haskins to throw an interception against Michigan this week. You just have to expect, even back to like Terrell Pryor in 2008 or 9 or 10, which, when he started the game almost immediately with an interception. JT Barrett has turned it over before or almost turned it over as well. So it's really hard for a quarterback to be, this game just creates things that maybe wouldn't normally be there. Like, Devion Smith breaking a 40-yarder a few years ago. It's like something he hadn't done in a while. He's a slow, plodding running back, but there he goes against Ohio State. They're things that don't normally happen find a way to happen in this game. That's why makes it really hard to be right about it all the time, even though, Ohio State keeps winning. So you would think you would just focus on that. But as we know, this year it's probably Michigan's turn. I don't know what Ohio State can do to stop it.
As far as the addressing the special teams and the field goal kicking, if you're kicking field goals on Saturday, that's probably not a good sign, even if you make them. This is a game where you're going to have to score touchdowns. You cannot settle for 3. If Michigan is lining up for field goals, and even if they're making them, that's probably a win for Ohio State, because neither team has been great in the red zone. The team that scores 7 in the red zone instead of 3. I mean, just if you let me pick one stat, I think I would pick points per red zone possession. And if you tell me what those numbers are, I think that would be the stat I would most like to know in terms of picking who's going to win this game on Saturday. Maybe more than turnovers, maybe more than just like a raw like rushing yards kind of number or total yards number or anything like that. If you tell me points per red zone possession, I would probably take that in terms of telling you who's going to win. So if maybe you should be worried about seeing your field goal kicker rather than whether or not he's gonna make them.
Yeah, you only want to see him on point after attempt, point after touchdowns.
Next one is from Blue Vod at Blue Vod Real. None, no concerns, none. We win. Emoji, angel emoji. Yeah. So I mean that's fine. I don't know. I mean, I guess save that one for Old Takes Exposed on Saturday if it comes to that. But other than that, we can move on. Next one, Long Live Bo at Long Live Bo, and the O in Bo is a 0. My liver and the safety of my TV. I mean, you know what? Tough but fair. That's I think those are valid concerns.
What I would do. This is the week to buy a new TV. It's Black Friday week. Just get a new TV just in case. just be prepared. So if you do something to your TV, you just bring in the new one. And if you don't do anything to your old one, you can take the new TV back. It's called insurance television. All right. Go get you one. I've got 4 right now. And, I may need them, I may not, but I've got 90 days to return them. So, just always be prepared when it comes to a huge rivalry game. And I'll tell you what, nothing feels as good as throwing a half full beer bottle at a television. It's the best feeling in the world. Now, in front of your kids, it's not so great. Still feels pretty good. What you got to do is just you have other televisions ready. Don't be an idiot about these things. You got to be smart. You got to have extra televisions for when you throw your beer bottles at the TV. That's all. That's what my father told me. That's what his father told him. We are beer throwers. I'll admit it. We throw beers at TVs. It's a lot easier to do now. It's a lot cheaper to do now. Back in 1964, you throw a beer bottle at a large television, you're talking about $2,500. Now you can go to Best Buy and get you something for $150 just to throw beer at it. So this is America at its best, in my opinion.
TVs, like running backs, you always want a pair and a spare. Can't live without them. Next one, at Hops Law. Number 1, Campbell or Hill get loose for big plays against blitz or man-beater crossing routes and screens, which we've talked about. Haskins lumbers for critical first downs. We've kind of talked about that. Harbaugh is too stubborn running between the tackles on obvious rundowns. Michigan's better in just about every facet and should roll. I do think that there is something to that third one, because that's one of the spots where Michigan State really fell into a trap. If you're kind of predictable and you're running during rundowns and you're not, you're getting kind of behind the chains, that's a spot where Ohio State can potentially take advantage of it. Michigan obviously has a far, 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 far better quarterback than anyone Ohio State saw up in East Lansing, but that is one area where they could get in trouble if he does kind of revert. I mean, we've sort of talked about this. If he kind of turtles a little bit and does the John Cooper play everything too conservative, just don't lose this game, don't lose this game, don't lose this game kind of football, I think there is something there that could get them in trouble on Saturday.
That's something that I keep going back to, and I've said it on earlier shows, where Jim Harbaugh's offense suits well what Ohio State does when Jim Harbaugh's offense decides to just run between the tackles and keep things simple and just try to move the ball as they do, straight ahead. Ohio State will take that, and whether or not they stop it, we'll find out. But that's what they would prefer Michigan to do. So anytime Michigan does that, it feels like a win for Ohio State's defense, even if they don't stop it, which sounds silly to say, because, if you run up the middle and you're getting 8 yards, that's not great at all. But it seems to be better than the alternative of going other places for the offense, because we've seen that doesn't work out so well. Ohio State is capable of containing things in the middle, and if they just get a healthy dose of that, they would sign up for that right now. Still up to them to stop it, but Jim Harbaugh's stubbornness is something that I think we've seen a few times, and I've heard from Michigan fans as well, and it's almost like this hope on the side of Ohio State fans that they will fall into this. But do you think that Jim Harbaugh is aware of this being a detriment? Is he self-aware? Like, does this come into his existence? Or because I also feel like this might be the week where he does not do that as much as he normally does, because you have to loosen things up a little bit. But I don't know where are you? Is is he aware enough of his tendencies to not give Ohio State what they want?
I think I would give him a lot more credit for that than I would have in previous years. I think they've shown a little more flexibility this year than they have in the past. And I think also he probably has been a little bit too conservative in these types of situations in the past, but he's got a much better quarterback this year than he did last year or 2016 or 2015. if you have a quarterback you have more comfort with and more confidence in, you're going to be less likely to try and play it close to the vest, because this is not, you're a long way from John O'Corn with Shea Patterson. This is a quarterback that I think has probably earned Harbaugh's trust enough that he's going to be willing to put the game in his hands a little more than he was a year ago. That they were pretty conservative with O'Corn, and I mean everyone remembers the interceptions at the end of the game, but that was when they had to pass. They were, what was it, 5 minutes left of the game or something, and they're down 4 points. Like you had to move the ball at that point. You didn't have time to have a long drawn out drive on the ground, and they really hadn't been able to do much on the ground at that point anyway. So yeah, I think that you're going to see more out of him this year than you have in the past.
He's the best quarterback Ohio State has faced in this. The best Michigan quarterback Ohio State has faced under Urban Meyer by a good margin. And you've seen Devin Gardner was having a very bad year, but he blew up against Ohio State in 2013. If they weren't stuck with John O'Corn last year, that was very possibly a win. And if they just get good quarterback play over the last few years, this would be Urban Meyer 6-0 against Michigan. And now you're talking about Shea Patterson, who's the best of the lot, who, if he plays okay, then that would seem to be enough for a win based on what has happened in the past. And now you're talking about an Ohio State defense that's not as good as those past defenses. So you see why Ohio State fans are concerned, and Michigan fans, 58% of them have no concerns. But yet, there are cracks in Michigan's armor, as we've seen, and the fans feel the same way, where there's all of these little things that if any one of them or any three of them go wrong, then they've just lost the game. So, oh man, 2 more days, Tom.
We're almost there.
Anything? Are we?
I'm kind of scanning through the rest of them. Most of them are pretty
crude,
pretty consistent with what we've talked about. I mean, Michael Beaton asked about an up-tempo attack. How Indiana used that against Michigan.
Yeah.
If Ohio State can run the ball enough to run the up-tempo attack,
yeah,
you'll see it, and that is something that could be a problem for Michigan. But that's predicated on Ohio State actually being able to run the ball.
I do think they will try to run it more. I don't think they'll abandon it as quick as they did, like, say, against Purdue or other teams. Like, even if it's not working early, I think they will still continue to try to do it, just because of the dividends it can pay in the second half.
Yep. And Tim Verhoeven has four fears, and we've talked about all of them. Stephen Kleintank, slow starts, early OSU momentum, and the game's close near the end, and just repeated the last 2 years. So, yep. Scott Flores, OSU realizing how talented they are and putting it together. A good one from @MitchClifton77. John O'Neill. If you're not familiar with John O'Neill, he is a Big Ten referee of some esteem. Michigan fans love him. At M3216 Monica, the refs. I don't know. Have you looked into where the referees are from? Because I know that's been a big story in the past.
No, I haven't done that yet. I was going to wait for the referee hometown Wikipedia, which is AKA Michigan fans. So once it is known, like once the refs are known, they will know who it is, and I'm sure it'll be trending on Michigan Twitter. And I would expect police presence outside of the referees' homes and in Columbus and pretty much anywhere that they will be traveling, because you can't be too safe when you are calling a college football game. What I would say is leave the refs alone. All refs are stupid idiots. Okay.
As long as Steve Payman's not doing the game.
Yeah, that guy.
I'm pretty sure he's not.
That guy's a crook. Not like good John O'Neill, a good man, a good family man, takes care of people, appreciates the difference between getting a first down and not getting a first down, things like that, or good efforts and nice tries. That's nothing wrong with that guy.
say what you will about John O'Neill, but he knows where the 15-yard line is, so it should be fine.
Exactly. Is that it?
One more. I'm going to read this one. It's from the username is John McClain. So ho ho ho! I have a machine gun now. At the McClain Show. The major issue is the ball control game plan. One mistake can blow the game if it's close. Michigan doesn't have a lot of margin for error. Huge lack to make big plays as well.
No, that's my. That was always my thinking with Jim Tressel, where you play so conservatively that if your defense makes one mistake, and I always go back to the Chris Gamble slip in 2003 against Wisconsin in the rain, like the entire game plan is predicated on not making that mistake. So when you do make the mistake, it can cost you the game. And I think that's a valid fear for Michigan fans here, and they should be terrified of that, frankly.
Yeah, I mean that's and you saw that all through the Tressel era. They did that against USC in 2009 when Matt Barkley was a freshman and came into Ohio Stadium, and Ohio State basically controlled the whole game, and then had one drive at the end of the game where they let a freshman drive whatever it was 85 yards down the field and score the winning touchdown with just a couple minutes left, and that was it. And they blew an extremely winnable game against a team that turned out to not be particularly good, and probably cost themselves a shot at the national championship that year, because they only lost 2 games. They lost that game and they lost at Purdue in a completely inexplicable game as well. So, yep, that is a very valid concern, and yeah, I mean, I would arm yourself with half full beer bottles, because if you see that happening, warm that throwing arm up. Just make sure you stretch before you start throwing those beer bottles, because you don't want to tear your rotator cuff.
Right, and I would, like you said, just drink half the beers and then set them aside. You'll go through them quicker, but trust me, you're going to want them around. You need that extra weight. Just an empty beer bottle, it doesn't feel as good as a half full beer bottle. Trust me.
And if your spouse or loved one comes in and says, "Have you drank 17 beers?" You say, "No, I drank half of 17 beers," and then it seems way more responsible.
Plus, you can't do the math that quickly. You couldn't say 8.5. You would say, "No, I drank half of whatever this is." All right. I think that does it for our Thursday episode of the Daily Buckeye Weekly podcast, covering Michigan fans' valid concerns. Only a few stupid babies among the questions, and I appreciate everybody's assistance in this. I've got a bunch of Michigan followers, and they're all I was going to say good people, but I don't know them. They maybe a few of them are, but I do appreciate the help and the concerns and reaching out. And we will thank you for listening. Make sure to check out tomorrow's episode, where we finally get one day away from the game. And so make sure you check out the rest of the stuff on the ozone.net. There's tons of stuff. Go check it out. Go read it. Or just click on it and then go to the next thing. Click on that. And make sure you're checking out the rest of the podcasts. Rate us and review us on iTunes. Subscribe. All of that. It's appreciated. The more subscribers we get, the more people hear it, the more iTunes likes us, and we like that. So thank you all for listening, and we will see you tomorrow.
She threw away the motel key. I wish it never meant nothing to me. Say you will, now say you will. Oh yeah. Say you will, now say you will. If you tell me that tomorrow's alright, we could steal a car and leave.